Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today, oh my god, level of excitement is all too high. We are going to be finally releasing the results for the second round of the State of the Game Leadership Questionnaire Survey. Now, what is this survey? Well, I reached out to the top 179 kingdoms based on their top 600 player power, because now the bot that Rich has as a software engineer and me working with him gives us the opportunity to do. I'll link to that in the pinned comment description down below for those of you that are interested in getting more information about that. However, after reaching out to 179 kingdoms, and usually the top alliance, starting with the leader and then officers if needed, we ended up getting, I believe, 93 responses as of recording right now, so it's a little over 50%, which is great because it's about 10 more responses than we got the last time when we did round one. In addition, when we did round one, I ended up sending this, I believe, to Asya and or possibly Leo as well, who she was a part of the content team, and she forwarded it to the developers and then confirmed with me that the developers did receive it. And we ended up seeing some changes happening from that feedback. You have to imagine that it's kind of the same idea as if I was to get a feedback from the top 300 spenders in the game, and I asked them a number of different questions across a diverse field. And I then sent that feedback to the developers. That would have to be very valuable feedback to receive and want to sift through. And so I like to feel that this is the same way. And so with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So first things first is let me set the stage for how we collected the data. So this is a part of my sheet on our game-wide stats, and this is a private sheet for me, but this is where I keep track of all the kingdoms. Now, this is just ordered in chronological for kingdoms, so it's not anything. I did that on purpose so nobody would get any little hints on how it looked before. But this is essentially what I do is I go through each kingdom. Like, again, you guys know I have accounts in every single kingdom, right? So this is basically what I do. I go here. I click here, I would click on one, I would load into one, I would go to the rankings, I go to alliance power, I would click on the alliance, I would go to members, and then I would just message people in game or maybe try to find them on Discord. Like, it took me a long time. Now, if I had, a day or two or a couple days where I could have maybe 8 hours a piece and just do nothing but that, yes, probably would go faster. But essentially, I go through. And actually, a lot of these kingdoms out of the top 179, I already have Discords for usernames, IDs, and or if you see CIG, that just means I contacted them in-game, but haven't heard anything back. If you see like this with the ID, that means that I was able to get a hold of them on Discord, and then we have the form for yes or no, right? So Y means yes, they did fill it out. If it's blank, it just means they haven't filled it out yet. And again, I want to be very clear here. I also want to show off who did fill the form out because I want those people to get recognition because they took the time to do it. It also doesn't mean that I'm dissuading or throwing shade at the people who didn't. Again, people, for whatever reason, IRL comes up. Maybe they just didn't find time. Maybe they haven't checked their Discord in a while, whatever it may be. Again, this is more just to give recognition to the people that did, and then also to let the people know that haven't filled it out yet, at least at the time of me recording this, that I'll be doing this again. And again, I would love to involve anyone and everyone. And I also want to state that I did make multiple attempts to reach out to all the leaders, and or I reached out to multiple officers if the leader did not reach out. So I really wanted to make sure we got as much opportunity for there to be as many people representing the top 179 kingdoms as possible. So with that in mind, I'm just going to scroll through this quickly. You guys can pause if you would like, and I don't want to lose my spot here, so I'll just go like this. But again, all of these people that have Y, huge shout out. I can't honestly say thank you enough for the people that took the time to fill this out. You are the people in the community that are really taking a big step to make a difference. And that goes for anyone that takes the time to fill out these, any of what I would argue are very meaningful surveys and questionnaires. And this is one of them because this is going towards the state of the game. Also, someone did just tell me no. So, you know what? I'm not going to say I don't like you. I just wish that, would have been like, okay, I get it, right? But it could have been a language barrier thing. They're just like, no, we just don't want to participate. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, this is what we got. And like I said, when you have this many people that are interested in filling out this kind of a survey that really want to see the game succeed, and they want to do everything and anything that they can to try to make that happen, I only have applause for those people. So thank you so much. With that in mind, I also want to show off kind of when I reached out to people. Most people already know, that Satoru usually doesn't respond to me. But I still reach out. He hasn't blocked me yet, so I appreciate that. But I still reach out, again, anytime there's something relevant, whether it's Nor related or if it's something for him. I'll still reach out just so I can be fair across the board. But I reached out on November 4th, and again, didn't end up hearing anything back. I even reached out to someone like Cute Rabbit. And this is just to show when I reached out to people and that I did make multiple attempts, right? So you can see a multiple attempt was made here. There was also one I did on Satoru, which was on after the 11th, but there was a post before that, so I couldn't really break it up, unfortunately. And so again, just showing that multiple attempts were made just to set the stage. With that in mind, let's go ahead and show off the stuff. Now, I'm just going to be showing off the data portions. We will be doing individual video breakdowns for the text replies. I'm just going to show off this and then talk about the actual number stats that we ended up getting. So the first one here is, how long should a KVK season be? The number one most voted response from 93 people so far was 50 days. That's the current. We have 50.5% of the votes saying leave it as is. However, the next two biggest chunks is 15% of the votes said 40 days. And then we have 10.8% of the votes saying 45 days. So if we add those together, we're at about, 26% saying it should be a little bit lower. If we look at this one, someone said 30 days, someone said 35 days, and then we had a few people actually said 60 days and 55 days. But if you add these up, what was that, 26, you're probably at 35%-ish or so that basically are saying, yeah, we could lower it. And then you got some people here that were, oh wait, what did someone say here? We'll see 50 days feels, okay, someone said, okay. So yeah. So again, right, you have a decent amount of people that are advocating for a little bit lower time, but at least 50% of the people that filled this out said that they're okay with the current duration for the season. Now, could we maybe see them go to 45 or 40 days, and could that maybe be better? I would be okay with them lowering it. However, I would like for them to try other things first. I would like for them to try and do things within the KVK, things that can affect how much fighting is happening in the KVK first, before we potentially look to lower it. But I would be okay if they wanted to test that out, whether it's going down by 5 or 10 days. The next one we have here is, how do you feel about Bastion usage? So we have 27% of the votes saying 1. Now, 1 is bad. 1 is like, oh no, kind of, no, it's bad. And then this is, oh no, it's good. And so 27% of the votes saying, yeah, no. 6.5% saying 2, still no. 8.8%. We had 7.5%. So basically, if we're looking at 1 to 5, right? It's 25, 6 was at 31, 42, 49, 55. So 55, so more than 50%, probably 53, 54% saying, yeah, we're not really fans of Bastions. But then you have, you got a number of people, right? A little bit less than that. Maybe it's around 45 or so percent saying, yeah, you know what, they're okay with obviously having kind of a smaller amount, saying that they're very much in favor of it. We got 8.6% saying 10, 2.2%, right? So you got 10 people within the top, and then you had 31 on the bottom two, just to show comparisons there. And I mean, I would have to believe, and I've stated this before, right, briefly, is that my whole thing with Bastions is, what is the overall purpose? Like, what is the value that it is adding to the game, aside from creating deads? Is there truly some kind of strategic thing that you're adding to it that is not the same thing as essentially simulating a pass? And it doesn't mean that you can't have multiple things that simulate rallies and garrisons. But to me, it just feels as though it would be nice if there was more of a unique approach to this. Like, I thought Keeps was an interesting idea because, sure, did it act kind of like a bunker, but you still had to attack it like a flag, but it had different usage in it. And I think that usage was very visibly seen. And the Bastion very much, just like I've said, it feels like this portable pass, even with things like barricades, right? Barricades felt like, okay, right before turrets came out, you were able to have this slowdown effect. It allowed for you to catch up if you're chasing. It allowed for a slow retreat if you were the enemy, or if you were aside from the enemy and they're chasing you. And you had to think tactically about, if you're going to go in, how are you going to move? Do you need to have a lot more numbers than them? There's just more strategic insight that you need to have as far as when you're prepping for something like a barricade, and then also the fact that you could just attack them and remove them, and or have them be something that you can go and build a structure. I mean, I kind of think of like Age of Empires, sending out one of my gatherers or one of my workers to go out and like build a wall or something like that, or build a turret out on some open field. Like, I always thought that was a really cool idea. Next one. What areas of the map do you enjoy fighting in the most? 56% said the open field. 42% said choke points, things like bridges, ramps, mountains. And then we had 2.2% saying gates and passes. I mean, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the whole idea of bastions to an extent, right? It's like some, and obviously there's been some improvements. They did lower down I believe the health and or just the amount of times that it takes basically for you to get rid of it, which I do think is a step in the right direction. It feels like that's the case from others, but it almost feels like it's not enough, right? And part of that feels like to me is that that's part of the feedback we've been hearing as well. Next one. Would you like barricades to make a comeback? Shockingly, 2/3 of the vote saying yes. 1/3 of the vote saying no. Okay. And again, I loved barricades. I just liked that it provided this kind of like crowd control effect. It was just a different approach. I mean, it would almost be cool if you had like buff and debuff zones, right? Like you could, and this is just, and well, I don't know if I'd say it'd be cool, but just an idea is, you know, kind of like when you're throwing down the fog and you're throwing down your fog skill and you have to basically walk in the fog in order to attack. Like you can't have the ranged attack from outside the fog in. And it would almost be cool if maybe they did some kind of skill where it's like, okay, you have like a buffed attack, right? So like you put this down and you have increased attack, right? So it's like, okay, you have like a 10% attack increase for a minute or maybe for 30 seconds, whatever, like those kinds of things. And or just other buildable structures. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could have a buildable ramp and you could use one of them? Only one, and you could build that ramp and it would allow for you to like create another choke point or another access point, whether it's building a ramp or building a bridge over a river. Like those kinds of things, it makes me wonder, like, man, wouldn't that be interesting to see that play, even if it's just testing it for a season. Next one. Would you like to see turrets make a comeback? This is actually still in favor of yes, but a little bit lower a percentage than barricades. And I almost wonder if it's because people had more mixed feelings about turrets with just the overall amount that you could build instead of having it be more limited for, you know, like we've talked about, just being able to have one per player that can build them. And then maybe there's a limit on the amount that you could put within a flag space or territory. But the fact is that people are interested in turrets based on this. Thoughts on if you should be able to build forts in final zones or not. Now, this was something that I had got some feedback on from a few people, and I thought it was interesting to ask. Again, pretty overwhelmingly yes, that you should still be able to, but 25 people said no. Does make you wonder. Would you like to see a system for KVK where you can select kingdoms to ally with? And I probably should have prefaced this by saying like before, like during our registration phase. I think most people probably understood where I was going with it. And you ended up getting, look at this, 85% people saying yes. And this is similar to what they did with the light versus dark, I believe, KVK in Rock, and they might have done it with other ones as well. But what I distinctly remember from Rock is that during the registration phase, you could have like whoever the top kingdoms would be like the captains, or they would have an A seed. And then other kingdoms that were B, C, or D would basically be able to apply to that captain's team, and the captain or king would accept or deny. And you were able to form unions or groups before the KVK started. That's the whole idea behind it. And so, for me, it would just be something interesting to test. Right? So maybe if it's like a KVK chapter they test it out on, and if it gets a lot of responses, if a lot of people are interested in playing it, right, maybe that's something to consider. Next one, which is a follow-up from above. Would you like to see each allied group, assuming 2 groups, take a turn to pick a starting zone for KVK? I mean, 76% of the people said yes. That's a lot. And my idea behind this was, if you think about League of Legends, or any kind of MOBA, or any kind of game where you have like a pick ban kind of rate. So it's, if Group A gets to pick their starting zone, so like the top kingdom in Group A picks theirs, and then the top kingdom in Group 2 picks theirs, and then you just rotate. So it's like number 1 kingdom in Group in each group goes first, one and then the other, and then the second strongest kingdom in the groups go next, one and the other, and so on and so forth. And you get to pick your starting zones. Now, do I also think it could be interesting if you did something like this and then the game just said, okay, you guys are going to start on this half and then you start on this half, right? Like if it's you're on this half, you're on this half, totally okay with something like that too as well. My whole idea is it would just be interesting to test something like that. And that is what excites me, is the idea that this is something that could be implemented from what I believe, from what I think. And the fact is a lot of people thought, hey, this is an interesting idea. Okay. Next one. Would you be okay? Now, this I think is very important. Would you be okay if they delayed the start of the next season in order to add more kingdoms to your server pool? Meaning, you could have a higher range of kingdoms to get paired with that can give you different and more balanced matchups. Again, 70% of the people saying yes, they would be okay with delayed starts. But the most important thing that would have to happen here is the CoD team would have to specifically articulate this and communicate this in advance. Not last minute. It would have to be communicated in advance, but to say, hey, for these kingdoms or in this season, or if your kingdom is in this season, and here's a list of kingdoms, we are going to delay your start by 2 weeks. Why? Because we're going to wait for the next group of kingdoms that's a season behind you to catch up, so that way we can add these 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 kingdoms to your kingdom pool. If you do it like that, and you give people heads up notice, they would be more willing in order to be okay with it or not give you as much pushback because you are appropriately and properly communicating these things well in advance. And the fact is that it's supported. Right? Numbers don't lie. How would you feel about kingdoms being able to choose which zone 1 they start in? I.e. could be the first strongest chooses first, second strongest chooses second. Now, this is not in a union group. This is just a la carte, how it is right now, but the only difference would be the kingdoms get to pick where they start. Right? And so it wouldn't be team. It would be more like, okay, you are a part of a union, but, and I guess you're like, oh, sorry, not that you're part of, like, you're not officially a part of a union. You're still doing probably the standard KVK diplomacy, but you're basically choosing individually. And so look, you still have 53% of the people saying yes. 29% said no. And then we got some other answers. I wouldn't know, maybe. I believe the system they had before with letting everyone pick their starting zones brought more to the game in terms of diplo and matchmaking potential. Okay. Brink of War rankings should determine selection order. That's interesting. More incentive to take the event seriously. Whoever suggested this, I love you. I'm sure someone's going to let me know. Great idea. Starting zone should be based, at least with one way to test. Starting zone should be based on who is allied to make for better fights. Let it be random so it'll be exciting for the matchup. To be honest, random as only surprise and surprise. Okay, however, I can't decide exactly with which event. Kingdom should be able to choose which zone when they start in, but first come, first serve. I don't know, but I do think King should be able to agree to swap before the start. It's fully reliant on matchmaking itself. Getting a disadvantageous starting zone in the current system at random somehow seems it would feel better than getting it by the system listed above. Yes, but without the strongest kingdoms, choose first. Okay. Return to diplomacy was far more important. It made better play. Maybe an idea, but I suppose kingdoms would abuse it. Select too much safe zones, and it would lead to boring shared zones with allies. I think random is more funny. Okay. What else do we got? First come, I think that only the top 1 and top 2 servers in Brink of War. So look, second person mentioning POW should be able to vote where they start. I think letting players choose is all right, but basing it off of single strength is a bad move for development. Maybe basing it off of realm competition. So the competition, right? So Brink of War. Okay, I actually think that's probably a better idea to test that first than maybe what I'm initially suggesting. I love that. See, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, people have great ideas out there. Should the season default power for migration of players who join but not affect the kingdom status change? This is what it is currently, right? So if you're 3 million S1, 5 mil S2, 10 mil pre-strife, season strife, 15 mil, should this change? This is mixed. Almost 37% of the votes say that it should change to 5 mil for S1, 8 mil for S2, 17 mil for pre-strife, and 25 mil for season of strife. Now this kind of almost falls a little bit more in line with what Imperium kingdoms were at before the adjustment, because the max for an imp kingdom in Rock was 25 mil before they upped it to 35 mil. 29% of the vote saying that it should be 3 mil, 5 mil, and then 10 mil for Strife, and then only Season of Strife gets the increase at 25 mil. 11% of the votes saying that we should go 4 mil S1, 6.5 S2, 13.5 pre-strife, and then 20 mil season of strife, but basically still saying that we should see some increases. Then 10% is the last one we'll read, which is 3 mil, 5 mil, 10 mil, and 20 mil, just saying. So basically, everyone is saying that we should either increase it or season of strife should be the one thing that we do increase. But you can see here the majority of people saying that we should be seeing some increases. Next. What troops have been most used in battles from what you've seen? Again, this is no surprise. Mages. I almost would have thought archers might have been a little bit more and maybe closer with infantry, but I guess that's not the case. 55% saying mages, 30% saying infantry, and then 15% saying archers. Now, why do I think this is important to look at? Because leaders are out there on the field across multiple KVKs, seeing and again, and oftentimes a part of those conversations on what their alliance player base is running. So the fact that you're not seeing a lot of flying and a lot of cavalry, the idea here is we should want to see all of these troops being equally represented, and that should always be the goal. I should say this, not that maybe they should all be equally, but the goal should be that we should be trying to do that, right? In that we should be seeing at least some representation from every troop tier, and we're not. And so I think that is a major opportunity for the game. What would you change about the current elixir production rates, if anything? And basically we categorize this into would you increase the production rates or would you decrease the production rates? 24% said we should be increasing the production rates by more than 50% of what they currently are. 20% said we should leave them unchanged or leave as is. 12.9% said we should increase them by 20%, 9.7% plus 50%, and then 9.7% plus 25%. 6.5% says we should increase it by plus 30%, and then 7.5% said we should increase it by plus 10%. So again, majority of people saying we should increase the elixir production rates. Next, would you like to see unit tier, this is T1 through T5, breakdowns for kills, deads, heals, merit, and glory points on player profiles and leaderboards? Overwhelmingly yes. Overwhelmingly yes. 93% of the vote. How dare you, 7.5? No, I'm just joking. Everyone has their opinion. How long should war last throughout a KVK? Again, current season is 50 days for players to be fulfilled. Days can be spread out and does not mean this has to happen every day consecutively. I wanted to be very clear there. We're talking about just total amount of fighting and PvP that would be expected or that players would want to have within a 50-day season. Now, there's a number of different votes we have here. 29% for the largest one says that we should have 25 days. 50% of the time we should be fighting. I do somewhat tend to agree a little bit more with that. However, first and foremost, I would like to see it get to a point where on average it is that, or we get closer to that to see exactly what people still think and if they have changed their minds or not. I think it's easy to say that you want a lot more PvP when a number of KVKs see days worth throughout the entire 50-day season. And we've proven that through data and through showing you the numbers across a number of KVKs previously. 20.4% said we should have 31 plus days, or 62 plus percent, or 2/3 of the time we should be fighting, right? Which, okay. 18.3% said we should have 60%. There should be 30 days of fighting out of a 50-day season. 11.8% said we should have 20 days, or 40% of the time we should be fighting. And then 8.6% said we should have 15 days worth of fighting, or 30%. Again, I think the idea here is you see people that are advocating for wanting to see more fighting, and then the answer is, okay, well, how do we get that? To me, it's a very easy solution because it factors into the overall amount of troops that players are able to train at the current rate, so that way you have more troops available specifically for your free-to-play and your low spend, because in most cases your mid to high spenders are usually going to have a decent amount of troops available. So it's how long does it take to train troops? 2, how quickly can you heal troops overall to get back into the fight? 3, how much resource storage can you have before a KVK starts? And then how are you able to sustain that over a period of a KVK when it comes to RSS? Because most of the time, if you are fighting or when you're in fighting moments, you are not going to be gathering. You are going to be fighting. And if that is draining your, which again, it doesn't, and I'm not saying that maybe they need to come up with some way to keep gathering resources while you're fighting. which maybe you could have fighting marches and then gathering marches. That could be a thing. So you could still be sending out gatherers while you're also fighting. Again, I don't know if that is the answer to it, or at least one of the answers. It was just an idea. But I would love to hear what you guys think on this. What do you think are some ways that we can create situations to have more fighting in the KVK, whether that's through troop training, through healing, through other measures, right? It's just, I don't know, maybe lowering the amount of sevs that are incurred, maybe lowering troop caps again, maybe from 300 to 250. I mean, whatever you may think. I don't know if I asked anyone about this, and now that I'm thinking about it now, that is a question I will try to ask next time. Next one. As we continue, how long should kingdoms wait to start their next KVK? Now, this was under previous stats where I thought it was 2 weeks. That's why it says currently, when really it's 30 days or 4 weeks, and that's what I should have put, so that's my own fault. But you can see the majority, 55%, saying it should last 2 weeks. And this is what we've said before, like people should only be in a home kingdom for about 2 weeks, give or take. I don't think we need to be there for a month. And I would love to see this improvement made to where we get to a point where we are seeing a 2-week turnaround on you're in the kingdom, and then maybe the timeline starts, but then it lets you know like when those things are going to be happening. Right? Now, is that enough time to fully heal and then re-engage in Brink of War events? Like I said, maybe it's 2 to 3 weeks. I just don't know if it needs to be a month, right? Obviously, the majority of people feel it's 2 weeks. Now, I'm okay with testing it, right? I think that's one of the opportunities, which is like, okay, let's test it across the season and then collect the feedback and see what people think. Did it work out? Did it not work out? I think it's easy for people to say, once again, like one of the other polls is that it's easy to say we'd like less time to be there versus more time. Next one here is people said that we should be there for 10 days. 19.4% said we should be there for 10 days. 7.5% said we should be there for a week. And then 7.5% said we should be there for 15 days. But obviously it's a lot less than 30 days. And then we have 20 days for 4.3%. Next one. We have, would you like to see them add the ability to accept or deny all players where everyone, regardless of power, would need to apply to the kingdom? Overwhelming majority, 86% says yes. The king or queen should have the ability to accept and deny anyone and everyone. Next one. What do you think about a new kingdom's skill banish, where it would send players to the island off the continent that used to be in the game? This player would not count towards kingdom influence, cannot join any alliances, cannot rogue and attack players on the main continent, can still buy migration permits via a separate option the game would need to create and or other. Now, I'm not necessarily saying maybe all of these things need to be included, but the idea being is that, look, you have 90%, almost 90% of the vote saying yes, this is great. Now, I thought is that if you had a banish skill, you could do it once a month. And the reason why I say once a month, just to start, is because you are not going to be banishing a low-powered player. You're going to already have an idea on who the strongest players are that are just not active anymore. You don't want to waste your time zeroing them, and you just want to banish them. Now, other times you might want to banish any strong players that are still active but they're not contributing. Why? Because someone who's inactive and isn't playing will eventually succumb to the inactivity cooldown, where their city will be removed. But you're usually going to start top down, not bottom up, with something like this. And other people have submitted some similar ideas here too as well that they provided. And again, we might cover these in another video, right, where we do a little bit more of a deep dive. I just want to go over the graphs and the stats for this one to show you what people are advocating for and what they'd like to see. Next, how long should a migration cooldown be? 55% said the length of a season, so players can migrate each season if they would like to. That means it's up to them. 17.2% said it should be 30 days, but still, that's less than 50. 16.1% said it should be 60 days, which again is more, but if you're factoring in that you have a 50-day season plus the month you're having in Home Kingdom, it would still align to every season, so it's still the same thing to me. 50 days, 6.5%. But again, overwhelming majority says that it should basically be lower than what it is now, and you should be able to migrate each season if you would like to. I don't know why that isn't an option, right? It is something that could make the game more money, and if people want to leave and they want to purchase those things, that's up to them, right? It's everyone's individual choice. Currently, players can reach a maximum of 277.2k weekly alliance number points with no tech donation crits. Now, this number actually is a little bit larger. Someone had reached out to me and basically said there's like this 6 or 8 hour or some hour cooldown, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but they said there's like a cooldown that you can do where once you hit that max, you basically would take your troops back and send them back out to where you can keep building flags and keep getting more points. If that's the case or not, I have to ask a couple people. I'm just going off of this for that, but I just want to give some context because someone did reach out to me about that. Given passport permits cost you and that doesn't change what this is, what the answer is, or the question. Given passport permits cost 400K and you can gain 1 per week, how do you feel about this? 52% of the vote said need to be able to gain a little over 400K member points weekly in order to purchase and have a little bit left over. 41% said you need to be able to gain exactly 400K member points a week, right, if you're meeting those. And then you had 7.75% said leave or unchanged. So I think, again, this makes sense to me. I think it should be, I think you, as a free-to-play player, you should be able to gain, at minimum, 400K weekly permits a week through free-to-play means. That's very important. Okay. Next, also stats courtesy of Nuff. Do you think there are enough events in game to keep players engaged? 71% of the vote saying no, 29% saying yes. And we'll get into some of these later. Would you like to see the KVK village system change to the same way in a home kingdom where the buffs are applied alliance-wide and not village caps for a limited number of players that can occupy? I did ask people this question before I wrote that, so I hope that is still accurate. 82% of the vote saying yes. They would like to see it change to where the village system is applied alliance-wide. 18.3% saying no. Again, it makes sense to me, right? There's just so much strife, so much unnecessary management drama and pressure and stress that can kind of come with how the system is there, where you have to basically say like, oh, you're good enough to be in, you're not good enough to be in, or you're in because of your contributions and you're not in because of your contributions, even though you can have everyone contributing, but you still have to choose. It's such a slippery slope in my opinion. And we're getting close to the end here. On average, how would you rate the matchmaking in Roots of War? This is actually a little mixed, but it leans a little bit more on the lower side of just like not satisfied, where you have 16.1%, right? 15, 15, 32, 37, 42, 52, 58 that you have percent of the vote saying, 58 out of the 93 saying 1 to 5. And then you have some people that are satisfied. You have some 7 and 8s here, right? So it's 26, 29 people, right? I guess if you want to add 35 for 6 and above. So I think the thing with matchmaking is that, like I've said before, I would love to see them apply, at least try something where you maybe reduce the amount of time slots, right? So you maybe say like, we're going to do 2 time slots or maybe 1 time slot. Now, maybe you should do 2. Do 2 time slots each day. And again, I don't know how many time slots there are overall, but I would say limit it to 2 if it's more than that. I don't know if it's 3 or more. Someone will probably let us know. And say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Right, we're going to do 2 time slots. Maybe you do them 12 hours apart, just for consistency, and then from there you say, okay, or you allow everyone to see who's where. So if you keep it the same way, and I think regardless, if you do keep it the same way or change it, allow people to see who is where. So like, what is your ranking going in? Like, are you going to be ranked? Are you ranked number 25 on the overall row board? Okay, as your alliance. Okay, where are the other alliances based on where they are? Because maybe you want to go and seek out a matchup, and you want to just have that opportunity to do so. I guess my point is that I would just like to see things tested. Apply some trial and error, and if it ends up being awful and it doesn't work, that's fine. At least you tried. But what happens if you try something and you just hit a nice golden goose? Okay, next. How would you like to be able to spectate other row matches outside of your alliance? Overwhelmingly, 71% saying yes, 20% saying maybe, and then 7.75% saying no. And again, we talked about this where it would be on a delay. So if they highlight matches for row, because row I think is great, it's just row needs to be promoted and advertised more. It needs to be more accessible. So, because there's just not a lot of row content being put out. And I would love to cover a lot more row content, but there's just not really an opportunity to do it in an easier way. And so I would love if they highlighted, like pick 1 match or 2 matches a day. Allow people to go in and watch them live, but with a delay, or upload the VOD and allow people to watch it as a replay. And then maybe add some kind of commenting system or a hearting system or a liking system. Like, really think about how you can turn Roots of War into like an esport type event or a professional sport type event. Ideas hopefully will come. Would you like to see custom lobbies for row so you can practice against no one, AI, or even schedule scrimmages or practice matches against other row teams? 84% of the vote saying yes. 86% saying maybe, and then 7.7% saying no. I hate you, no's. No, I'm just joking. You guys are okay. Next. I think this is probably one of the last ones. Would you like to see all heroes eventually make their way to the tavern's gold chests as an addition and after a period of time from their release, even if they start out paywall gated or in premium currency events? This is let me be specific here. This does not mean that you would get rid of these from paywall gated areas or premium currency events. You would be adding these as an addition and after a period of time, so maybe after a month or after 2 months or after a season, they would eventually get added to the gold chest, to the tavern gold chest. 87% of the vote saying yes. To me, this is a no-brainer. I've been advocating for this for a long time. I'm happy to see some of the stats align with that. 13% saying no. How dare you, top spenders. Okay, how would you rate the communication from the developers thus far? And again, this is a broad question. I understand that, and I'm prefacing that appropriately. However, we've talked about this in a number of ways. Where, for example, right, you remember that post either Aussie or someone else had made saying, hey, we're going to work on improving transparency and communicating any kind of hidden changes or things that are changes, but we didn't communicate those things, and obviously that just hasn't happened. This, I have to imagine, is a part or a factor of that. So you have, again, pretty overwhelmingly 1 through 5, right? You have 14, 16, 32, 39, 59, so that's 60, that's almost 2/3 out of the 93 responses. But then you do have them getting some in favor, right? You got 4 that are at 9 and 10, 12, 19, 24. So you got 24 people that are 6 or above. And this isn't to say that every single communication has opportunity for improvement, but it's to show where does the community feel? How do they feel about this? Okay. And then how free to play friendly would you rate COD currently? And again, this is where they land on it. Now, keep in mind, most of the people filling this out are not free to play players. It also does not mean that they don't have at least some perspective on maybe how pay to win a game is, or what free-to-play elements there are, maybe having conversations with free-to-play players and their reliances or others. So there is some credence I'll give, but I do just want to set that stage appropriately, is that this is probably something where I would have to ask pure free-to-play players, but I just thought it would be nice just to see where they landed on it. So, and maybe we can use this as a baseline, so when I go and ask free-to-play players how free-to-play friendly they think the game is, right, does this align or does it not? That's a thought too. But overall, you see kind of 1 through 5 is where it lands. Right, what is this? 8, what do we got? 26, 40, 53, 63, 69. So 70, so a little bit more than 2/3 there. And then again, we still have some on the top side, 5, 10, 16, 24, from 6 to 10. Would you like to see, okay, this is the very last one. Would you like to see the limit on gem gathering removed? 83% saying yes, 17.2% saying no. I'm still kind of a little mixed, but I do somewhat almost tend to lean a little bit more in the favor of yes. I'd love to know what you guys think. Okay, with that in mind, that's it. Next ones we just have is like, would you like to see anything removed? The last one, you know what, maybe I'll read this off. Oh, I guess we'll just do this. Would you like to see Alliance leaders answer different questionnaires in the future, or other ways to utilize such a group? A lot of people saying yes, some people saying no. Here's a response. A group with everyone would be a good idea. Honestly, again, that's the King's Guard that I have. It would have a lot of clout with the devs. It's a way to synchronize our voices for the health of the game, even if we fight in the game when all the top alliances agree on something, the devs ought to take notice. It's also a way to communicate protests, spending campaigns, committing to not using bastions in their KVKs or other methods of putting devs on notice. Would also love the idea where we gave or implemented or something of the sorts. I think having alliance leaders provide feedback is a good thing. Unfortunately, I'm not convinced the developers actually take it seriously. They do. They do. I can tell you without a doubt that they do. Sure, it helps in the future. I don't see why not. Appreciate all the work you do. Thank you. Then if the developers really pay attention to this, then I'm in such favor. And again, keep in mind they have. It's been proven that they did take notice and paid attention to the first one. Obviously, it would be nice if there was maybe some acknowledgement from them. I'm not saying I'm looking for that, but to people who wonder and ask this question a lot, or I should say often, maybe not a lot, where they wonder, is doing something like this even worth it? Do they take notice? Again, we showed you, and I told you, Asia said that they were really looking forward to hearing the feedback, that she wanted to pass it along to the devs, and she did. That to me alone says a lot, without saying a lot, if you will. But yeah, would it be nice if they came out and acknowledged this kind of effort? Sure, I think that'd be great. Not saying they have to, but again, based on responses. Yes, I think it would be interesting to share experiences and thoughts on leadership members. I think it's the best way to improve the game. Most of us are so busy, I don't know. I'd rather not force it on anyone. Yes, the devs should always be running things by alliance leaders. We get it's a business and they want to make money, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the overall health of the game. Well said. And alliance leads can help guide them in the right direction. No more of these questionnaires too long. If it was cut in short, 2 to 3 questions max per survey during a long period, it's better. I mean, keep in mind, we do this once every 6 to 12 months. And I appreciate the people that take time. I think as an R5, we have a duty to do these things because only in this way is it possible to show the developers what the players want to happen in the game, because R5 represents their players. Yep. If the questions are useful, I probably should have just translated that before. I forgot, sorry. Yes, we would like to see alliance leaders answer different questionnaires in the future or some other way to utilize the group. Yes, servers for older seasons and younger ones, they vary quite a lot in terms of adjustments. Okay, yes, I like the idea. Yes, I like the idea. Awesome. Okay, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I would really love to know what you think in the comments down below. Are there any other kinds of questions that you would like to see and or ones you wish I expanded on that we can maybe consider for round 3 whenever we do that, maybe 6 to 12 months down the road? This is a long one, but lasted less time than the one we did before. I think we have a better approach on how to do these now. So, as always, that's it from me. Until next time, we'll catch you later.